Just to set the stage here, sports fans, you should realize that this NFA team is currently ranked #1 in the state of Connecticut, undefeated this year as a team, with some very outstanding wrestlers. Daniel Hand comes into the match, rated 8th in the state, with their own group of very outstanding wrestlers.
I started in 8th grade on the first wrestling team that the Brown School had. Dave was coming in as a 7th grader, and I believe he started wrestling at that point. And then, of course, we wrestled throughout both of our high school careers.
I had met some people at coaches conference. So they called me about a position as a guidance counselor. He said, I forget what you coach, but they need an assistant wrestling coach. We placed in Kenny DeStephanis. Jim Flanagan was the head coach, and Dave DeLessio was a senior.
And he was quite good, you know. Perhaps if I had thought about it, he had a lot of characteristics that I think even then would have made for being a good coach.
I think he took 3rd his senior year in high school at State Open, won the state championship. He went on to wrestle at Southern for a couple years, studying to be a teacher. Jim Flanagan retired and the opening came up, and Dave ended up applying for the coach and getting the head coach, and I became his assistant.
And he was a resident advisor in my building. And we started dating probably just after wrestling season started, and I had never even seen high school wrestling.
We have a packed house here for probably one of the finest dual meets ever staged in this gymnasium.
I went to a couple of the matches and would sit next to his family, and they'd tell me what was going on. He was just constantly moving, and he yelled out, and he just wasn't the kind of person who was loud and yelling out all the time, but he yelled during wrestling, and you could just tell he loved it. That was my first ever sight of what wrestling was.
Dave was more of a technical wrestler, and I was a little bit more of a bull. I had the saying back then, you know, if it doesn't go, just keep pushing. You know, it'll go.
He gets along with absolutely anybody, and I think that his sense of humor helped him do that.
Dave would always kind of laugh at me and talk about how to do it more technically sound. And that was one of the nice things working with Dave, is that I could laugh too.
He was funny, and he always made me laugh. And I think that was what drew me to him first. I think it's how he makes people comfortable and how he relates to people.
Dave DeLessio handed me the honor of being a head wrestling coach from 1998 to 2002.
And went to Morgan High School, and they actually won our only state title in program history. I'd go and watch my brother wrestle, and I had no idea really what wrestling was. I met Coach DeLessio, and there was just something about him that, you know, his athletes want to compete for him.
Dave DeLessio took over the program again in 2002, probably till about 2010, when Blair, Tugman, and Coach Deli took over.
I was trying to finish my degree, and I was originally supposed to teach at Guilford High School, and it actually fell through. I didn't really know where to turn, and I actually reached out to Coach DeLessio, and I said, hey, I need a place to student teach. And he said, I'll figure it out. In one condition, will you coach for me? And I said, absolutely, no brainer.
You know, he cared about you. He wanted the best for you. It wasn't just about wrestling, but that was the tool. And he didn't preach character. He just wasn't.
Coach DeLessio made every single person on that team feel like they were important to the team.
A wrestler showing that he had the desire to do something and maybe not quite the ability that fed into this compassion that Dave had.
I found my old jacket, and I found a bin that had some of my old stuff in it. In 8th grade, I started for the first time like halfway through the year, and that had a lot to do with DeLessio being my neighbor, because I used to see him all the time, and he would always be like, you should really try wrestling, you should really try wrestling. And I was always like, I don't know much about it. Like, I always wanted to play football, but I couldn't because of my medical history. I fell in love with it like right away. Freshman year, we had a stacked team. We had like 45 kids, and we had a few state champions on it. And I was just expecting really to wrestle JV, but I actually lettered as a freshman because Coach D would say, you know, you're gonna be valuable. We have a state champion at 112, but when we move him around, you're gonna get the varsity matches at 112. The wrestling team attracted all different kinds of students and athletes, like kids from different groups, kids with different interests. And Coach D's biggest thing was like making that a family.
And when you are in that family, even if it's for a brief moment, you're always a part of the family, you're always welcome. Dave always told me, whenever you're ready, come back. And I took that to heart, and I took over the team in 2013. He was a volunteer coach with me.
Even when he was volunteer coach, he was at matches and practice as much as when he was getting paid to be the coach.
Coach D'Alessio and I were co-head coaches, and then Dave took the program over again until unfortunately he passed away.
I just think that he didn't want to worry anyone. And so I think he just tried to just push through until he couldn't.
To me, that epitomizes the man, like the love that he was able to give, even in his final moments with the team, being able to just make it there. He was always so positive, always happy, and happiest when he was on that wrestling mat.
When I lived there, like sometimes I would watch their dogs and stuff when they were away. I went to see him when he was not feeling good at the house. That's probably the last time I was in the house. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. I'm good right now, thank you. I remember this was my sophomore year, and we went to Gray's that year. I don't think we ever did the Gray's again.
So he saved everything. He has every book.
This was my freshman year of high school, and he was coach of the year. So Jay and Nick were two of the captains. Justin was also a senior, and Fish was a sophomore. We were going into the finals, and we had like 6 matchups against Amity, and they had a big lead, and we won like all 6 matchups to take the title.
From my first match, I'll never forget, freshman year, a kid who had placed at SECs the year prior. I was pale as a ghost. They came up to me and like, oh, it's gonna be fine. Like,
yeah.
You know, go out there and wrestle. And they started this thing. Every time I went out of bounds, they would just try and get me to lighten up. Every time I go out of bounds, they'd say, hey, Eddie, what's up?
You're like, what's up, Eddie?
Yeah,
Like,
just
you come
to
out of
crack a
bounds,
smile
big
and
laugh.
laugh.
Yeah.
So that was, you know, just something he knew would help me, and I didn't even know it would help me.
To the point of your story, like he found out how to get the best out of each person and figured out, like, did he have to be hard on this guy? Did he have to make this guy laugh? Coach D always like figured out how to coach each individual.
I think he had a really unique set of characteristics that included this huge competitiveness, you know, drive to win, compassion, and empathy for people in general. But he also had a really good strategic and tactical mind. And I'm sure there was stories out there about how he knew which coach would have to bring out a wrestler first before he chose his wrestler.
Yeah.
Those kinds of details that maybe, you know, not every coach is in tune to.
25-pound weight class. What has happened is at 119, Coach Dave D'Alessio forfeited to Maccarell, the excellent wrestler for NFA, choosing to move Tommy Ricano out of his 119 spot up here to 125, and Ricano is responding.
Every coach wants to win, and he wants to win, but he always talked about respect and sportsmanship. You know, we might not win them all, but we're going to keep our head high. And he knew with the type of coaching and the people he surrounded himself with that the winning was going to come. And his record speaks for itself.
He was made to be coach. He was just really good at it.
The entire family is hugely proud of his accomplishments. Wrestling does a couple things for wrestlers. I do believe that. And it teaches them discipline, and it teaches them that if they set goals and work hard towards them, that they can achieve those goals. And that has utility outside of wrestling.
What a great win. What a great job. There it is. That says it all, folks. Dave D'Alessio, Daniel Hand Wrestling. Amen. Great job.